Shalom, holy initiates and holy adepts. This video is part 2 to my series on spiritual ascension through the 7 Partzufim, or as some would call them, chakras. Now, I have to do part 2 here because as some of you may or may have not noted, I do all of my videos usually just on the fly, and I'm always, after I finish doing a video and uploading it, I'm always like, I forgot to say something in it, or I feel like it wasn't perfect, or I forgot to add something, or I didn't say something right, or it's like I'm always finding something that could have been better, or I forgot to do something or add something. And it's just always the case with all of my videos, and I just honestly feel that all of my videos are just not my best, most perfect work that I can produce. But I'm a very busy man, and they're done on the fly for the most part. So it is what it is. In any case, the reason I'm doing part 2 to this series is because in the last video that I did, part 1, I actually forgot to include a lot of the material that I'm going to be including and speaking of here, which I thought was very, very relevant. Which is why I felt compelled to upload the second part. So, as should be known, if you're going to see this video or watch it, you should, as a prerequisite, have watched part 1. So this is just a continuation of part 1. So assuming you've seen part 1 and you understood everything presented there, then in this video, I want to expand and speak on more of the very brief mention of the Tree of Lives in part 1. Right? In part 1, I stated that the Tree of Lives, I reminded everyone that is, if you're initiated, you know that it, at the highest level, it represents HaMashiach, right? But we also need to understand that, it also represents our soul, the righteous souls of Israel, because we are all the offspring of Mashiach. Now, if you are fluent in the Holy Word and you've mastered it at the deeper levels, then you should know that, yes, there are many levels to this occult Hebrew code word, which is tree, which in Hebrew is pronounced eitz. And there are many levels to it. But on one lower level, it occultly represents or signifies the nefesh, or the ruach of man. Now here I have provided just a few of many. There are many countless verses in the Holy Word that mystically equate the tree with the nefesh, or the ruach of a man. Okay? Now, the most explicit equation is given in Sefer Devarim in chapter 20, verse 19, which you must be fluent in ancient Hebrew in order to know. That verse in the original Hebrew reads, and here I have a section of it, it reads, Ki ha'adam eitz. Literally in the Hebrew, literally translates as, for ha'adam is a tree. So this is the first and most explicit verse that gives us this very mystical equation. Okay, this very mystical key to the kingdom of Elohim. Okay, but there's countless other verses. Right here, I provide a few more examples. For example, we read in Sefer Tehillim in chapter 1. Well, in the opening verses really of Tehillim, it begins by stating, "Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, but his delight is in HaTorah of Hashem, and he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season." Man that so basically here, these opening verses are likening man, really the spirit of man, to a tree. That is, if he's a righteous man and he spends all of his time meditating on the Torah, meditating and studying and penetrating the Torah and guarding and keeping the mitzvot of the Torah, then he will be likened to a very fruitful tree. Okay, and again, this just these opening verses of our ancient oracles have simply gone over the head of practically all of Christianity for over, the past, 1800 years or so, okay? Because Christians don't understand what is being stated and taught in these opening verses of Tehillim. If they did, they would all be Jews, but they're not. But not to digress, moving on to the next example, we read in chapter 52, verse 8, it states, "But I am like a green olive tree in the house of Elohim." In 92, verse 12, it states, "The righteous shall flourish like the palm tree." Okay, but here we have many examples. The point here is there's many examples in the Holy Word that equate the nefesh or the ruach of a man with a tree. Okay, now this goes to a very occult parable. All parables really are occult in nature, that Yeshua stated, one of many in the Synoptic Gospels. We read in Sefer Matthew in chapter 7, verse 19, he states, "Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire." Now, this is a parable. Okay, we have to understand, what are these code words? What do they signify? If you're initiated, you know. Right, the tree here, he understands, he knows, being one of the most initiated Kabbalists has ever walked the earth, he knows that the tree occultly represents the nefesh or the ruach of a man. And he's saying if it doesn't bring forth good fruit, meaning this soul doesn't have any good deeds under his belt, nothing but wicked deeds, total and complete violation of the mitzvot of the Torah, then this soul is going to be cast into the fire, into the lake of fire, which is Gehenna, hell. Okay, now that's really what he's saying here. Okay, now it's very difficult to find references, explicit references to souls burning in Gehenna or Sheol in the Holy Word, but they're there, I assure you. They're all just very implicit, very occult, very hidden, really hidden in plain sight. Now, we have one of my other most favorite parables for this is given in the Torah as well. Again, there are numerous verses in the Holy Word that speak on the burning of evil souls and spirits in Gehenna or Gehinnom, which is hell. Many, numerous. We have numerous comprehensive sections in our esoteric literature that expound upon this and deal with this. This is a fact, okay? But one of my other favorite parables in the Torah is there's a verse, there's a holy Torah or law in HaTorah, the divine royal law, that states that if the daughter of a Kohen or a priest goes whoring, she is to be burned. Now, if you're initiated, if you mastered Sefer HaZohar or principal esoteric texts, or even if you haven't read it but you've been initiated, however that may be, wholly divinely initiated, you should know the esoteric mystical level to this law in the Torah. The holy priest, the holy Kohen here, really the Kohen Rabbah, the high priest, represents Hakadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, and his daughter here represents the soul or the spirit. So, what the law and the esoteric and its most recondite mystical level is stating is that if the daughter of the high priest, that is the solar spirit of the Holy One, blessed be He, goes whoring after false Elohim, demons, idols, it's going to burn in hell. This is very real. This is not a game. This is not a joke. We have a very major serious problem in modern Judaism. We have many stupid Jews, many stupid Rabbanim, which really to me is an oxymoron, because you cannot be a Rab and be stupid, who teach and believe that there's no such thing as burning in hell, that the soul and spirit doesn't burn in hell, it doesn't exist. And it's all just a figment of Christian imaginations. Okay? It's a very serious problem, and Adonai is very upset that there are many stupid Jews that are teaching and preaching this. In fact, I know quite a few of them that do this. Some of them even claim to even call themselves Mekabalim or Kabbalists. which is very abhorrent and abominable to say the least. Okay? And so, again, we cannot call these Rabbanim. These Rabbanim that call themselves Rabbanim are not really Rabbanim, because the word Rab in Hebrew means a master. You're an ascended master. To designate somebody or to designate yourself a Rab of Israel means that you are designating yourself. You are being designated as an ascended master. But these are not ascended masters. You cannot be an ascended master if you do not even have this basic knowledge that a wicked soul or spirit is going to burn in hell for a very long time. And this is very true. You know, Yeshua in his generation went around judging and calling out the Jews and the Rabbanim that were ignorant on many essential matters and basic matters, really. There's even an example in the Gospels where he goes up to a certain Rab, a quote-unquote supposed Rab of Israel, and he asks him, he asks him certain questions that he can't answer, and then Yeshua's response is, and you call yourself a Rab of Israel? Of all nations, Israel? You claim to be a Rab of Israel? You claim to be an ascended master of Israel? And you can't even answer these basic questions that I'm asking you? You don't even know these basic things that you should know as a Rab? To be even designated a Rab? This is a joke, people. It's a freaking joke out there. When I see too many stupid, Rabbanim and Jews. It's a joke out there. You have to be really stupid if you claim to be a Rab, even a Kabbalist, and teach that hell doesn't exist, and that wicked souls and spirits don't burn in hell. That this is just if you're stupid enough to think that this is just some Christian doctrine, which I assure you there are actually Orthodox Jews that believe that the whole concept of hell and burning in hell is a Christian doctrine. That's how ignorant, that's how stupid they have become and are. They have no mastery of the Holy Word and the Torah. This is very, very upsetting. So excuse me if I had to digress here for a few minutes, emoting about this very great issue currently within modern Judaism. But to not digress too much further, let's continue on the disquisition at hand here. So going back to speaking on the Tree of Lives, right? We should understand and know that the Tree of Lives at the highest level represents Mashiach, okay? And understanding that this is a most high divine archetype, right? This Tree of Lives, being the most high divine archetype, contains many lives. These lives are all of the lives and souls and spirits and neshamoth of Israel. Okay? And we may designate all of these lives of the Tree of Lives its images of this supernal archetype. We may call them the smaller trees. Okay? So this is the dichotomy at play here. Okay? The tree on one level can represent the supernal archetype, but it can also represent an image of that supernal archetype. Now, let us go a little bit deeper here and speaking on what I was getting to at, or what I forgot to get at in part one, which was how this all relates to spiritual ascension. Okay? Right? We need to understand that the archetypal Tree of Lives is composed principally of 10 Sfiroth. Likewise, we too our spiritual existence, which is a tree of life in of its own, is also composed of 10 Sfiroth. More principally, we may say of 7 Sfiroth. Okay? Now, I want to read to you here one of my most favorite verses in the entire Holy Word, and what is my most favorite book, my most number one favorite book of the entire Holy Word, being a chief Mekabel, is Shir HaShirim. For so many reasons that I can't even begin to fully get into or go into here. But in fact, every verse is my favorite of Shir HaShirim, but this is just one of my favorite verses. I just love every verse of Shir HaShirim. I'm so in love with this book and all of its verses and poetry, etc. And of the countless holy mysteries encoded and encrypted within this small, most holiest of texts. Now, it states in Shir HaShirim in chapter 7, verse 8, I said, I will ascend the palm tree. I will take hold of the heights thereof. Now, indeed, also thy breasts shall be as clusters of the vine, and the smell of thy nose like apples. Now, here we see a perfect example of the spiritual ascension of the tree. The palm tree here represents the inner tree of life of the holy Zadik. And the Hebrew word there for heights actually signifies, really on the literal level, palm branches or boughs, but it may also signify heights. Again, the branches of the tree represent the different levels or Sfiroth to the tree. Here, the holy Zadik is saying, I'm going to spiritually ascend the 7 Sfiroth of the tree of life within myself. This is what spiritual ascension is all about. It's ascending the 7 Sfiroth within us. So, very, very beautifully stated here. Now, I want to reveal here the interpretation of a very occult parable. All parables are occult, really. Kind of redundant, I guess you could say, to say that. But I want to reveal and unveil a very profound parable that is mentioned in the Synoptic Gospels. Now, we have to understand that, yes, the Synoptic Gospels, when you are reading them, they will designate wherever a parable is given. But the entire Synoptic Gospels is one superimposition of numerous parables. So, yes, some parables are designated superficially, but there are deeper levels to the text, right? Everything is a parable when we're dealing with the word of Elohim. So regarding this parable, this is what we read in the book of Luke, beginning in chapter 19. It states, Yeshua entered and passed through Jericho, and behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus, or something like that in the Greek. I'm not very fluent in Greek, which was the chief among the publicans, and he was rich. And he sought to see Yeshua, who he was, and could not for the press, because he was of little stature. And he ran before and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was to pass that way. And when Yeshua came to the place, he looked up and saw him and said unto him, Zacchaeus, make haste and come down, for today I must abide at thy house. And he made haste and came down and received him joyfully. Now, again, we have to understand that when we're reading the text, no matter what aspect or what portion of the holy text we are reading, everything is encoded, everything is encrypted, okay? We have to approach the holy text as we would dreams, riddles, parables, okay? There's a lot of deep, profound mysteries encoded within the text. This whole narrative here has many esoteric layers and levels to it. So now let me go ahead and unveil one particular recondite aspect or level to it. So here is the divine interpretation. That Greek word there, Zacchaeus, is actually, in our reality, a Hebrew name. This is just a Greek transliteration of the Hebrew name, which would be Zakha, which comes from the Hebrew root word Zakha, which means purity. Okay? Now it tells us that this Hebrew man, this Israelite, is of a short stature. And Kabbalistically, this means that he is residing on a very low level of spirituality and consciousness. Okay? That's what it means. This means that this man is of a short stature from a spiritual Kabbalistic vantage point. This is telling us that spiritually he's very stunted, he's very retarded. Okay? He is on a very low, very, very low vibrational wavelength, okay? Very, very low level of consciousness, okay? And the reason is because he's a publican, he's a very wealthy man, and that's what wealth in a lot of cases does. Wealth is very dangerous in that it if you're not careful, and most people just cannot be very careful and with wealth, that their spirituality becomes stunted, because wealth is associated with carnality, and carnality is the antithesis to spirituality. Okay. Now, the sycamore tree here, as you should already know, represents the inner tree of life, composed of its 7 branches, or Partzufim. Okay, and Yeshua represents Elohim. So this wealthy man, he is not a very spiritual person. He doesn't have much spirituality, and he's sitting and residing at a very low level of consciousness, and this separates him very greatly from accessing Elohim, from communicating with Elohim, from seeing Elohim, and everything that entails and means and signifies. Okay, and so in order to obtain lucid vision and relationship and communication with Elohim, he has to spiritually ascend. And him climbing the sycamore tree represents him ascending these 7 chakras, or Partzufim, or Sfiroth, of the inner tree of life. And once he spiritually ascends, then he is able to see Yeshua, who represents Elohim. So you can see it's all there. All this knowledge, all this wisdom, it's all there, hidden in plain sight. You just have to have eyes to see it. So with that said, I conclude. Shalom. Amen.